So the next level we'll be going to is a ship called Huge Crisis. I'm not really a fan of the name of Huge Crisis. It doesn't really tell you what the setting is. I mean, unless they named a ship that. In which case, that kind of seems like bad luck. This place is full of gun robots, like in Sonic Adventure 2. But these gun robots still attack Sonic. I mean, did they mistake him for Shadow again? That can't be it, because Shadow becomes a gun agent later on. I mean, he was only shown to be that in 06, but he was also shown to be that in like the Archie comics and stuff, which aren't canon to the games, but there's no reason that, I don't know. It just feels weird that there's gun robots that are attacking Sonic. Like, are they really that mindless? You'd think that they would program him to be an exception. Some of the enemies are annoying, in fact. Like, there's enemies that shoot projectiles in a straight line at you. And I'm not going to say they're as bad as the slicers, but they seem to be this game's equivalent, because, as you know, I hate enemies that shoot projectiles in platformers. And those enemies, well, it's not like their projectiles gradually move up like the slicers ones do, but still. Don't do upward air tricks after you launch from that thing. Because if you do, then you'll miss the boost rings and die. That happened to me once when I first played the game. Thankfully, after dying from that, I learned to never do it again. Also, I'm pretty sure that you should hold right when you're sent towards the boost rings. Because, like, I've heard horror stories about in Sonic 4, if you don't hold right on the minecart while soaring across a pit, then you're gonna drop straight down and die, rather than momentum carrying you over. Maybe it's like that in Rush. Maybe if you don't hold right when you're on that booster thing, then you'll die. That's why I hold it just in case. But really, it's a platformer. You're always gonna be going right all the time. I really don't understand why you would ever not hold right. Even in the classic Sonic games, sometimes you have to hold down to keep yourself in ball form so that you'll move faster. But even when I'm holding down, I'm still also holding right. God, like that bar was moving so fast that even though I had 3 numbers, I still failed. Oh well, I'll try again later. Fun fact, in 2009, Rush was re-released with Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll in the compilation game Sega Fun Pack. Which is kind of weird. Why are the two of them compiled when they have nothing to do with each other? But yeah, that's a pretty nice invincibility area. Although, you're sort of invincible when you're boosting anyways, because you boost right through the enemies, so. This level's actually surprisingly free of gimmicks. It doesn't have that many gimmicks in it. Like, the closest this level has to gimmicks are the crusher block things that kind of suck because they're always off screen. You never see them coming. And even though you think that the screen is taller because it's a DS game, that means you'll be able to see them coming all the time, right? Well, again, there's still level between the two screens. There's very clearly level between the two screens that you're not seeing, that you only get to see after you progress upwards from the bottom screen. And because of that, if a crusher block happens to be between two screens, you're gonna get crushed by it. What's coming up is yet another combat room. And you might think that using the homing attack will make it easier because you can constantly homing attack a bunch of enemies. But you'd be wrong. It only air dashes you forwards. Oh yeah, don't fall down here or you're guaranteed to get crushed. And there's no way out of it. It's an unwinnable situation. Like, I'm gonna tell you right now, I got crushed here more than I did the entirety of Sonic Advance 3. Like, I think that the crusher blocks were not nearly as bad of a problem as I was expecting them to be in Advance 3. It's here where they're a lot more of a problem. This level has some cheap enemy placement and crusher blocks everywhere, but honestly, I'd take crusher blocks and harmless cranes that swing around over any of the gimmicks in any of the previous levels, and especially the gimmick in the level coming after this. Like, the problem that I have with Sonic Rush in general is that its levels are too gimmicky, and the gimmicks sometimes they can be hard to figure out in your first playthrough, and they throw you into bottomless pits when you don't know what to do with them. Which sucks because sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out how you're supposed to react to the gimmicks. So that's why this is one of my favorite levels in the game. And even when my first playthrough, I liked it. Because this level is not very gimmicky at all. It's got these things. You really shouldn't be able to jump off of the cranes, by the way. Because there's no reason you'd ever want to do that. But yeah, like you grab them and they swing you around. They're just like in Skydeck. So, like, even though I took 4 minutes on this level, I actually didn't take that long at all to beat both acts of this when I first played it. Like, I remember at least for Act 2, I beat it in like 2.5 minutes. One of the problems that I have with Sonic Rush is that the level length is, well, it's not nearly as bad as in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but the levels can definitely feel like they drag out, especially when you're playing them for the first time and you're constantly dying over and over again because you haven't memorized how you're supposed to react to the entire level. And so you're dying constantly over and over again. And so beating an entire zone can take you a half hour on your first playthrough. Oh, that was cheap. Again, you can't see the crusher block coming because it was between the two screens. And because the screen isn't wide enough, you're guaranteed to boost under it. I also don't like that enemy, the ones that drop projectiles directly down them. And another enemy that, it not only springs you upwards, and you're vulnerable when you're sprung upwards, so you get sprung into enemies helplessly, but it takes multiple hits to kill. And it's so easy to jump into it, and you get launched upwards when you don't want to. Like, that enemy would be so much easier to deal with if you could just do the mid-air spin by pressing A in the air like you did in Sonic Triple Trouble. I don't know why the handheld games completely ignored that concept. That was the best thing that the Game Gear games introduced, was the mid-air spin. And it was only in one game. Another thing that it didn't hold over from the Game Gear games. See, you shouldn't be able to jump off cranes, god damn it. But anyways, in the actual levels themselves, you can't see how many lives you have if you have more than 9. Even though a Game Gear game, Sonic Triple Trouble, fixed that problem by showing you that you had more than 9 lives during the actual levels. They don't do that in this game. And I don't think they do in the Advanced series either. And I don't know why. But yeah, it is really good that they have more than one special swing in a level. But it's just that it takes over a half hour to beat a zone on your first playthrough. And that's a lot longer than it took me to beat an entire zone in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, whether you're first playing it or not. Because the thing about this game is that even though it's supposed to be a portable game and it's pick up and play, you can't beat one act and then save and quit and then return the next day to play another act. You have to beat the entire zone, including the boss fight, in one go without running out of lives, which is really frustrating. Especially in my first playthrough, when I snapped by the time of altitude limits and it just got an action replay, like I'm using right now. Yeah, these special stages are really hard. Especially when you're playing it on an emulator. Because again, I was forced to use an emulator to beat this game. Like, well, not beat this game, I beat it on a cartridge, but in order to record it, I needed to use an emulator. Tap the right side of the floor there and you would have been able to get over to the rings to collect them. It seemed impossible because going to the right would have sent you to the bombs. But yeah, just tap it and you'll get over to the rings just magically. But yeah, I used this is the code that I used in order to make it so that I was able to get all of the Chaos Emeralds in my cartridge and play the final boss. Like, I'll probably put it in the movie description if I remember. Well, I probably will, because I rewatched these right before I upload them. But anyways. Like, the code is kind of unintuitively named, because it says that you get a ring. Like, it says get rings every time you get hit. But that's not really how it works. It's more like a huge ring multiplier thing. Like, the more, like, you get rings, and you get a huge amount of them. But yeah, there's cheap enemy placement all over here. There's plenty of, like, there's fast parts like that, which is good. And there's also tubes that suck you in. They're just like the tubes from Ocean Base Zone. I would have said Chemical Plant Zone, but the ones in Chemical Plant Zone did suck you in when you're so much as near them. And these ones are convenient, so. But yeah, you should probably hold right on these things just in case. Obviously, standing on those platforms will cause them to fall, which is kind of an inconvenience in these combat rooms. I don't know why this game insists. Like, why does this game insist on having combat rooms all over the place? Do they really think we loved that gimmick from the desert level so much that we wanted to have it back? Really? Thankfully, there's not nearly as many combat rooms as in the previous level. Like, I don't know what they were thinking with that one. Like, what is it about desert levels in Sonic games and having a lot more focus on combat? There was Mirage Road for this game, and in the Werehog levels in Sonic Unleashed, the desert levels are all about combat and have barely any platforming at all, which sucks because of Werehog's platforming is the best part of the game. Well, the best part of the Werehog game, I should say. But anyways, this isn't exactly the first boss, because see, there are multiple things that I hate about this boss. For one, he'll go into the background constantly and shoot missiles at you, and sometimes they can be ridiculously, mind-numbingly easy to dodge, and other times they can be bullshit hard and you never know which one it's gonna be. And it's just a boring wait around fest where you wait for another opportunity to strike. Second, he has an insta-kill move. He can crush you by slamming onto the floor of the arena. And that actually happened to me twice when I first played the boss. I don't think that's fun. Especially not when it takes so long to beat the boss. And second, it has an extremely tiny hitbox. So every time that you are too far away from it, when it gets off the arena, because naturally you're spin dashing away because you don't want to get crushed. But the problem is that even if you spin dash away right before it tries to slam onto the arena, it's still going to move to the center because it's always in the center of the background, no matter how far left or right you go. So you have to wait a dangerously long time before dodging. And it's such a tiny hitbox, you have to jump right on top of it to hurt it. So it's very, very easy to be cheated out of a hit. This boss takes too long, like it pads itself out, and it's really frustrating. Another thing I should point out is that the ring physics were actually changed for this game, so that the more you get hit, the further away your rings scatter. So you probably noticed that right there. So that's really annoying, because honestly I think that the rings were hard enough to get back in the previous games. Like, I noticed that in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and like other games like it, but especially that one, I felt like it was based on luck whether you managed to get your rings back or not. Like sometimes the rings could fall through the floor, even in the classic games. Like that's not just something that this game in Advance 3 did. Because like, I remember in Wing Fortress Zone in this boss fight, I constantly died to it because my rings would fall through the floor. So I don't know why they thought they should make the ring physics even more difficult. But yeah, another thing that I hate about this boss is that it's unpredictable. Because, see, it has exactly 2 attacks that it can do that can remind you of the first attack or the first boss. Because of that, it can actually make you worse at the first boss because you're anticipating an attack that's not going to do. It can either slam down and allow you to hit it, or it can slam into the arena multiple times in a row and you don't know what's going to do until it does it. So you have to, like, you can't anticipate that it's going to slam the arena 3 times because there's no way of knowing it's going to do that. So you start waiting for longer than you should to jump into it when it only slams in the arena once. And so by the time that you've gotten close enough to it to jump onto it, then you're only going to jump at its side and you're going to feel cheated out of a hit. I don't see how that's fun. But yeah, like that's one of my least favorite boss fights in the game. It's lazy, it's unpredictable, and it pads itself out. Sonic and Tails are still treating Blaze like she's obviously evil, even though she's with Cream. Did you just see what Sonic said there? He basically said, hey, that's not how it works around here. only I can play the hero. And you're gonna notice that's a much bigger problem later on. Like, Sonic seems to have a complex in this game where it's like, only I can be the hero of the world. Only I can stop Eggman. That's really, really annoying.